the LIFE program. I will be telling you about the Call for Proposal 2020 of the LIFE program that we have launched in April of this year. And specifically, I will focus today on the sub-program climate change. The presentation will look at the call for proposal. First, I will have just an overview on what the LIFE program is. Then I will focus on the sub-program climate change, and I will end the presentation telling you about the evaluation process and also some tips on how to develop a good proposal. So let's start. The LIFE program. What's LIFE? LIFE is the funding instrument of the European Union dedicated entirely to fund environment and climate change projects that help to improve the implementation of environmental or climate change policies, or also help to update such policies, perhaps by identifying gaps on the ground or new solutions. We have this program since 1992, so it's about 28 years, and it's one of the oldest one in the European Union, together with the Erasmus program. So far, more than 5,000 projects funded in all Europe on the fields that you see on the slides: nature, biodiversity, climate, governance, communication. What are we funding through LIFE? LIFE is funding a different number, wide range of initiatives, and today we will focus on traditional projects, which are the most common projects that we fund, and where also we have the biggest part of our budget going to. So what traditional projects are? Traditional projects are open for participants, which could be private or public entities based in Europe. The coordinators should have a legal basis in Europe. These projects aim to implement climate and environmental policies in Europe, or strategies, identify new solutions, improve governance or communication. These projects we don't have any minimum or maximum budget for the LIFE projects, so you can decide yourself what's the best amount to carry out your activities, and we don't have neither a minimum or maximum duration of the projects. So also you can decide yourself what is the best duration of your project, depending, of course, on your activities. We don't even have the obligation to create a consortium, so you can also come and participate alone as a private or as a public institution. We just put there an average size of what we receive in terms of projects, so about between 1.5 million, I think 2 million, it's an average amount of a project, and 3 to 5 years, it's the duration of projects that normally we receive, but as I said, there is no minimum nor maximum. To what is the amount of the contribution that we provide to your projects that the European Commission co-fund? So we co-fund 55% of the cost of your project, which means that the rest, 45%, should come from you as a consortium, or from you as the beneficiary, if you are the only one. If you are a consortium, every beneficiary of the consortium, every partner should contribute, and the amount of the contribution is decided among yourself. We just need to have, as a whole, 45% of the rest of the budget of the project. 55%, as I said, is the maximum contribution of the European Union, except in cases, except if your project works on nature and biodiversity, or on specific species and habitats. There we have maximum 75% of contribution. We work on two areas. One is the environment. There are three areas of work, which is resource efficiency, nature and biodiversity, and information. The three areas, of course, that we allocate every year. And the acronyms are acronyms that we use our facility in our management of the proposal. So see them for the presentation. Another work of LIFE is change, what we call climate action. We here have also three dimensions of climate change mitigation, climate change adaptation, and climate change governance and information. I will focus on these also, which is the change climate action sub-program. So the focus of the climate call. The focus of the climate call is, of course, related to climate change policy. So the objective of the LIFE program and hence of your project should be to help fight against climate change, either by reducing emissions or addressing the resilience to climate change, the governance of climate change. What we look at is the European added value. So to what extent your project can have an impact, can have good results that help the European Union to move forward. In this sense, important is the sustainability of your project. So once the project ends, how are you going to run the activities, how the impact will be sustained, and the replication, so how your project will be shared with other contexts, other partners, other entities. But these elements are part of our evaluation that I will talk about at the end of the presentation. Now let's look to the policy areas. So in the guidelines for applicants for climate change, you have policy areas, which are the areas where we see as a European Commission gaps. So these areas are areas where we would like to receive proposals, which means that for this area, if your proposal fits one of these areas, it will receive some scoring, some points in the scoring system. For climate change mitigation, we cover the climate change policy, so the emission trading system, the effort sharing decision, everything that looks at reducing emission in all sectors. So, for instance, we have land sector, we have agriculture, construction, buildings, transport, we have energy-intensive industries such as cement, steel. We look at emission reduction of fluorinated gases and also monitoring and reporting of these gases. If you fit one of these policy areas, look into the guidelines whether you fit the specific work area, which are additional specifications that are added each year. So it's an additional element of the policy area, which specifies which type of gaps we look for and which type of projects we specifically look at this year. To the policy area and to the work area, there are points allocated in the evaluation. If you do not fit one or the other, no problem, you can still submit your projects. It's not excluded, just you would not get these points. For climate change adaptation, we have as a policy and as background policy strategy is, of course, the climate change adaptation strategy at European level, but also at local level, and related strategies. So we look at urban adaptation, for instance, projects that are working with the Covenant of Mayors, projects that look at improving blue-green infrastructure, so eco-based approaches to adaptation, for instance, green areas that help to address issues of flooding, or management of coastal areas, agriculture, forest fires, forest management, tourism sectors, and lastly, outermost regions are welcome to participate with projects that address the issues of weather events, notably, of course, in coastal area. Again, as for the climate change mitigation, for adaptation, you have policy areas, the ones that are here, but also work areas. So if you do fit one of the policy area, also check whether you fit the related work areas. Lastly, we have governance and information. These projects are related to development of strategies and implementation of such strategies. They look also at changing behaviors, so really working on communication, but they also look at capacity building, raise awareness, monitoring and evaluation of policies and best practices on adaptation. Again, for governance and information, we do also have specific work areas that are clearly listed in the guidelines for applicants. What are the important highlights for the Call 2020? The Call 2020 came into a period where we had this issue of COVID, where we still have this issue of COVID. We tried to increase the flexibility and address also some possible barriers for applicants. First of all the deadlines have been extended of 1 month, and I will have a slide with all the deadlines. We have also decided to provide more liquidity, more cash flow. So we increased the first pre-financing payment, which is the financing that you receive from us once we sign the contract that is called grant agreement. We have introduced what is called grant to third parties. I will have a slide on that. We have included a new narrative on startups, which means that we encourage startups to join the LIFE program, perhaps as associated beneficiaries. So joining up another company or public sector and providing technology, innovation. So we do welcome startups. We have included some financial flexibility, and one is for private entities, there is no more the obligation of tendering, about 139,000 euro that it was before. And in May, for 15 days, we opened the possibility to have bilateral chats with one of us. I know that your national contact point also recommended to have this bilateral chat. It was the first time that we did it, and it really helped, I think, to clarify some points of the proposal or of the guidelines. The new feature of the third parties grant. This is a support which it's provided to those beneficiaries that want to launch local initiatives. And these local initiatives are run by entities that are not part of the consortium. So the idea is that with a maximum of 100,000 per project and 20,000 per initiative, you can provide a small grant, you as a beneficiary, to third parties, so parties that are not in the consortium, provided that you respect the principles that are there, so that the rationale and the results expected are explained, that the management process in terms of selecting the entities is clear and there is no conflict of interest, and also that you clarify which type of entities will receive this type of support. Here are the deadlines. So the closing date for submitting your proposal to climate change strand is 6th of October, and it's a full proposal. This year we have more budget compared to last year, plus 31%. To send your proposal, you have to fill in a form, and you have to check this participant portal online for what is called technical assistance. Otherwise, for the other type of projects like climate change, the portal is called e-proposal. and it's available on our website. You can click from there. So this is e-proposal, online creation and submission of LIFE projects. The structure of the proposal that we requested is in few parts. You have administrative form and technical part, where you have to describe your project, the objectives, the activities, also the budget in part F, financial part. So already open, decide, I think, to open and create one draft, so it's easier to fill it little by little, because the last days always there may be some issues technically wise, so it's often better to start a little bit before. Of course, you can include attachments like pictures, maps, or additional information you want to include. The evaluation comes, of course, after the submission. So you submit your project on the 6th of October, and then we start this process, which, as I said, one stage. So we review the proposal that we received together with external experts that do not know each other. The submission and the evaluation of your proposal is based only on the proposal. So what is written on the proposal, no additional information, of course, to guarantee fair treatment. We review the proposal, and then we have discussions also with the Directorate General of Climate Action in the European Commission. The review of the proposal is based on 6 evaluation criteria that I will show you in the next slide. And at the end of the evaluation, we have a panel and an evaluation committee which decides the ranking. After the decision of the ranking, we will send you the information whether your project has been approved or not. If it has been approved, then it starts a phase which is called revision phase, where we discuss together how to adjust, if needed, your project according to the evaluation, of course. Normally, we should send the results of the evaluation around February 2021, sorry. And your grant can start to be, your project can start around July of 2021, of this year. This is a bit the timeline. Award criterion. These are the award criterion. So we look at the scoring total of 100 points, divided into 6 criterion. First is technical coherence and quality, so the feasibility, to what extent your project is clear, clearly conceived, feasible, and what is the link between the activities of your projects and the objectives that you state and propose, so the logical links, but also the quality of the partnership, what the partnership has the capacity to carry out these projects or specific activities. We look at financial coherence and quality, whether your costs that you propose are justified, are realistic, are related to the market price, or are more or less on the market price. EU added value, so to what extent you contribute with your project to implement the LIFE sub-program, specifically in this case for climate action. We look at sustainability, to what extent your project can be used afterwards, how and what's the potential to be replicated somewhere else or by someone else. And as I mentioned before, we look at whether you fit or not policy areas and work areas. Lastly, we look whether your project is also addressing other issues. I don't know, for instance, on transport, you may address air quality issues, or if you work on energy-intensive industries, you may also work on waste reduction. So anything that's complementary is also valued, and it's welcome. We look whether you have explained clearly if you use a green procurement or a label, and if you uptake research results from other funded projects, like, I don't know, Horizon, you will get also an additional point. Also, your project is transnational, there are really transnational activities that make sense and are useful for carrying out the project, we could get up to 4 points. The selection of the climate action projects, I give you some information for you to know from last year. For instance, normally we receive about 170 proposals. We select about 35, and we have a budget of about 71 million next year, and this is the division of the budget. You have the slides in case you want to go back to these numbers. What you should read is, of course, the guidelines for applicants, and also I recommend the guidelines for evaluation. It's a short document, at least you would have an idea of how we go through each of the criteria, and maybe it's also a checklist before sending the application that you kind of cover every element that we would assess. Tips. So what is normally critical in projects is the baseline. We don't often find a clear line, which means we don't understand the specific context to which you relate to. What is the problem you want to address? What is the specific area, and what are the situations you are facing? I don't know, if you propose capacity building trainings, you need to specify why these trainings are needed, because I don't know, there is a lack of knowledge, and how do you assess there is a lack of knowledge? So we need to know what is the starting point. This is the baseline. We also need to understand clearly the logic between the actions. So the actions among themselves sometimes are a bit of a patchwork, but they should actually be linked. There should be a logical sequence. Also the actions and, of course, the objectives. Sometimes we have very ambitious objectives and very low profile actions, so there is no clear logical link. Impacts, this is really important, as I mentioned, also for the EU added value. So we look to impact. We look to what is the change that your project brings on the ground. With your project, the baseline context will change. How do you measure that? What are the indicators? What are the monitoring activities that you will put in place? Remember to clearly have an activity that monitors impact, and remember to fit in the indicators table that will be in your package of application. Remember also to clarify how sustainability will be ensured. So what are the activities that will be ensured to have sustainability of your project? Clearly describe the replication and transfer. Perhaps you may have also an action within your project fully dedicated to replication, which means you engage other entities, for instance, to carry out your activities or part of your activities, and clearly describe the beneficiaries that are involved, what competencies they bring in. Transnationality, if you have needs and evidence, this would be an added value to have transnational projects. And in terms of project design, also it is essential that the duration should be realistic. So try to include buffer time in case of permits and authorizations, and clearly identify the partnership structure as the best for its complementarity of the activity. Here, just a slide for clarifying what is the good and what is the common good design and common problems. In the guidelines, we have also introduced a checklist. It's quickly table where you can go through and check whether you have kind of addressed all the issues. And that's it. This is the presentation, as I mentioned, on the call for proposals, on the specifically climate action, and finally on the evaluation and good tips. You find many information on our website, on the LIFE website. You find frequently asked questions. You find also some other registrations that have been streamed, for instance, on the beginning of May, which is the register and LIFE website. Any questions? The first point for clarification is your national contact point. So I hope this was useful, and I really hope to see your proposal this year. Please start already now to look into the EP proposal, starting your proposal. I really wish you good luck, and I hope to see you maybe in process.